All right, so an insider's view of the Mormon political machine, Justin Anderson. You might remember Justin Anderson from such films as earlier videos on gay rights that we've made. Justin Anderson was just recently interviewed, and he was asked a series of questions about his career, his political involvement, his counseling the brethren in different roles, different aspects of his life there, and how that came to be, how he got close to the 12 and the rest of the leadership of the church. And so he's questioned about that, and I'm going to comment on some of the things that he said. You're welcome to listen to that full interview. I will link it below. Also, John Dehlin will likely be interviewing him soon, so I'll also link that below and probably have some commentary on that. The reason why I wanted to comment is because I do know Justin very well, pretty well, better than most, I would assume, most of the people online, and he's a genuinely good guy. He has a great heart. He wants to see the best in people, and he's very forthright and honest with what he believes and what he says, and he's not apologetic. He's not trying to hide anything of what he really feels. Just because what he feels or sees is strongly held doesn't necessarily mean it's true, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's false either. So there are probably 15 bullet points I just want to go over. The first thing that I disagreed with was that he called himself a political advisor to the LDS Church. While he has been asked for advice on different political matters, political advisor seemed like a strong word to me. Perhaps it's wrong. Maybe he's evolved into that, but from when I was closer to him, the role was more of the apostles sometimes like to get the opinions of someone who is really far left, but still spiritual and still within the church, still believing member, but they want to get the opinion of each side. So a political advisor I would see more as someone that kind of sees the full ballpark of both sides, whereas an opinion from one side is a bit of a different thing. Maybe a big thing, maybe a little thing. The next really big thing that I was disappointed in, and I told Justin that I was disappointed in a couple of these things, so Justin, here's the first one. You said we love all the following, but, and this is in reference to gay people. You know very well, Justin, you know that we love gay people. You know that Mormons love gay people, and there's no one that we don't love. You can condition that by saying some of the acts aren't loving. If you thought that preventing gay marriage was an unloving act, then I could see how you could say that's an unloving act. But to say that you don't love them is a mischaracterization of how Mormons feel, because we are supposed to love everyone. We are commanded to love everyone. I have definitely met my fair share of Mormons who do not love everyone or speak derogatorily towards gay people, but I've largely found that is, of the age group of 50 years old and older that have kind of fallen into that mindset. But the point being, we love everyone. One of the parts you talked about how the leaders were very scared on the day that gay marriage became legal across the United States, and they were frightened, or they were kind of running around, and that they should know the legalese of what was being said. And it should be noted that at the very beginning, the very first day, there was a whole lot of stuff that was said that wasn't, we didn't know everything yet. So of course on the very first day, when not everything was certain and things hadn't been fleshed out all the way, there would be some confusion and maybe some chaos. But that doesn't necessarily mean they didn't understand the ruling. It just means they didn't understand it yet. Next thing you said, tithing funds was being used to battle same-sex marriage. And I have issue with that. From everything that I've seen and everything I've studied, it was kinda used. Yeah, they were required to pay some fines in California for using churches' assets for stopping same-sex marriage. But everything that I've seen is more along the lines of using the church's own satellite broadcasting system to broadcast a message to California, and similar things like that. Maybe using a church house to get materials ready or something like that. And so technically, could tithing have been used? Technically, but it's like, assets that weren't being used for other purposes that someone just used. So yes and no. It's not like everyone who's donated tithing, all of a sudden an increased portion of their tithing went to fighting same-sex marriage, but rather it was just a satellite broadcast feed and similar things were used, which technically was paid for by tithing. So this list is kind of long, so I'm going to keep going. I'm going to go faster. Damage control, so they don't get sued, lawsuits above the innocent children. So yeah, that's kind of one of the things that I thought from the beginning, was that the whole banning kids from banning children of gay married couples, so children that are exclusively the children of gay married couples, aren't allowed to be baptized until they're 18. Basically, Justin said that came from, he heard Elder Oaks basically say, well, that's because we didn't want to get sued by, a same-sex couple that their child is being taught in the church. We didn't want to get sued by them because the church is teaching them something that opposes their legal right to be parents. And that was kind of one of my speculations to begin with, so I can't really say anything about that. But there was one other part where I hadn't heard before, and Justin said in a singles ward that he was part of, Elder Nelson said directly that this banning children of gay married adults was a revelation from God to Monson. And that was something that Elder Nelson said. That's what Justin told me. That's what Justin said in the video, in the interview. Justin proceeded to say that he chooses Christ over Nelson, because that's essentially what Nelson asked him to do, was to choose between following what he just said or follow Christ of bring all the children to come unto me, and Justin said, I'll follow Christ. One of the things that popped into my mind, which probably is a bad thing, but it was that Monson is like severely dementia. I mean, he has severe dementia right now, from every source that I've heard. I think that it's probably coming in and out, because sometimes at conference he's looking great, and other times it's like, yeah. So to say that a revelation came to Monson right now, make of it what you will. But apparently that's what Elder Nelson said. I haven't heard that, but also Justin said that a record number of students at the University of Utah sent in resignation letters in the single adult wards. I hadn't heard that either. Didn't know anything about it, but it wouldn't surprise me that that would happen. I mean, in your college career, you're more likely to be pulled out of religion. It's just what happens when you go to higher level education that tends to be more liberal. People start to think more critically about things, and faith doesn't always have a place within college. I mean, it's just how it is. You don't have a lot of areas for faith because it's very factual and very logic-based, which is okay and good. Logic is a good thing, but I've found that faith has obviously led me to do some miraculous things as well. But anyways, my point being that oftentimes in college, people are kind of one leg in, one leg out of religion. Maybe they're going to church on a Sunday, but they're not doing the best things on the weekend, the Friday night and the Saturday night. And something like this, where you're banning children to come to church and be baptized, I could see that pulling a lot of people out. I don't know how you couldn't. So anyways, Justin said that he might lose some friends and might lose his job, might lose his calling, might lose his membership. They won't lose me as a friend over the things he said. I still think he's a great guy. So one of the questions someone asked, she said, I'm still a member on the spectrum, which I interpret to mean that, she's not a, 100% the church is always right type of member, but she has varying degrees of views on each subject. And she asked Justin, what can we do to see change? And Justin basically said, you don't have to change at the top level, change at the local level. Don't seek change, just continue to love and help and teach and guide. And oftentimes those ward level type of things that are reaching out to those that are being pushed aside will filter their way up. That's kind of what Justin's response was. Justin talked about how there's a full-time lobbyist paid by the church. I guess I knew that, but it kind of struck me a different way that there's actually a full-time lobbyist. That's like someone's job, is to be a full-time lobbyist to kind of teach the voting, teach our representatives what to vote on based on what the church thinks, which is interesting. Talked about the church thinking that THC is not okay, that marijuana is okay, but the THC is not okay. That was like the specific bill in Utah where the church was okay with the bill of medical marijuana that didn't include THC, and they weren't in favor of the whole plant. And for me, it's like, these kind of things, they can't really be put back in the bag. You can let them out of the bag, but you can't really put them back in the bag. So for like the church to kind of put the brakes on some of these things, it's like, it's okay. I get it. I get why they want to put the brakes on, because you can't undo it. It's kind of stuck where it is, and it's better to kind of approach things cautiously than it is just to let the whole thing out of the bag. My thoughts. So when I was down at the church history, they have a new church history museum downtown. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's really cool, and it has a lot of like all the things that you'll find on like a typical anti-Mormon blog, or someone that says, oh, I didn't know about these things. I didn't know about, these wives, or I didn't know that they destroyed the printing press, or, just different things, or this portion of the first vision, or that there were different versions of the first vision, or like all those different things that people complain about. If you go to the Church History Museum, the new one, right across the street on the west side of the temple, all those things are at the church's official Church History Museum, and it's wonderful. I want to go back. I had my family and kids there, and maybe I'll do a video on it next week or 2 weeks from now. But it's really, really cool, just to see how transparent everything is. Woo! But anyway, so there was a little twisty thing. There's like a little, there's like a triangle that says kind of just a blank side, then it says what the church thought, and then in twisted again it says what the public thought. And one of those things was on voting and politics in Nauvoo. I believe it was Nauvoo, or it might have been Ohio. But anyways, it was saying that the church thought that when members would vote, unified and vote kind of what the prophet said, they were showing their duty to God. They were showing their faith. They were showing those type of things. Where the outside public saw it as, this inner circle of, cultists that were abusing the political system because they had too much pull as a church body. And I see both sides. I get it. I understand why people see both sides. I don't think that that's entirely accurate, because there's been a lot of people that are LDS that vote against what the church says. And they're not excommunicated, and they're not disciplined as such. It's just they vote a different way. And so to think, a lot of things that Justin insinuated was that people would be punished, or that their membership would be held over them. You can't vote this way. And there could be a little bit of that, but I don't think it's definitely not that explicit. It might be implied that you should vote the way that this lobbyist is telling you to vote, but it's not the record. The record doesn't say that that always happens, and when it doesn't happen, it doesn't say that people are getting excommunicated. So there's no precedence for that argument. So it's kind of a wash in my mind. One question that I had that I didn't know the answer to was, how many bishops since November 5th have resigned over the gay children not being able to be baptized? I don't know. I wasn't able to see it in my Google search queries, but do any of you know? I don't know. Back to cannabis. The church does permit cannabis use by members in states where it is legal. There was a point brought up where it's still federally illegal, and so that could have been one of the justifications for the church trying to kind of put the brakes on. Justin also said the church wanted to portray that conservative values are more important than liberal values. I don't think that's true. I think that that's a very subjective thing. What is a liberal value and what is a conservative value? That's going to change from person to person. I think that there are values, and they can fall on a range of conservative or liberal. I mean, it's just there's going to be truth somewhere, and whether it's a liberal truth or a conservative truth, it doesn't matter. It's just truth, and truth stays here. The political spectrum goes on either side of it, or takes portions of it, or bigger portions of it. So it's up to you and me and all of us to figure out what truth is, and not to think, oh, that's a liberal thing, so I can't believe in it, or that's a conservative thing, so I'm not going to vote for that. There's truth. And is it true? If it's true, vote for it. It doesn't matter if Donald Trump or Hillary or Bernie or whoever it is says it. If it's truth, then it's truth. Simple. Keep going. One of the questioners that asked Justin some question, he's really stretching and really trying really hard to get Justin to say, so the church bribes legislators. And Justin was like, no, they don't bribe them. I mean, and he's like, well, they have a lobbyist so it's kind of like bribing because they have a lobbyist and he's lobbying. And Justin's like, no, he's just a lobbyist. He's not giving them any money or any favors or anything, and it's pretty stringent, and Utah's pretty transparent, and you can see that with John Swallow and other things. So, no, they're not bribed. So, and then the commenter, the host, he said, you have to really get in the temple, even to giving up their lives. So he was speaking of like these, and I kind of already touched on this, but he was speaking of these legislators that are LDS, and he was saying that, no, the temple says that they're going to do whatever the prophet says, and even if it means to give up their life. He said nothing, basically that's what he was trying to say, and that's what he explicitly said. And again, it's just not true, because there's been plenty of people that have gone against what the church says, members. I don't know, Senator Harry Reid, you don't think that he's voting anything against what the church says? He's still a Mormon. It's a stupid argument, and it doesn't even hold any water. I don't know why Justin let it continue. Justin continued to agree with spiritual extortion, and I touched on that, but again, I don't agree with that. Justin then went on to close. He said, my faith is much more than a PR statement. It's my relationship with God. He told members that are struggling with different doctrinal points to proceed slowly. Go find what you truly believe in. Have confidence in your faith. And then it says, you do not fit into, and then it cut off. And so I really wanted to find out from Justin what the blogger cut off. And Justin, what he told me was, he said, you don't have to fit into dogmas. He said, be yourself. Be who you are, basically. He said, love yourself and love others. I went on and I felt that it kind of, the blog ended very secularly, and I wanted Justin to not be seen as this anti-Mormon, because he's not. He's a good kid. He's a good guy. I mean, I say a kid, he's my age. A couple years younger. But he's a really good guy, and he's doing the best that he can with the information that he has, and he's been given a lot of information that the public simply hasn't. Do I think he's wrong in a couple things? I do. But do I think he's doing the right thing by voicing his opinion and calling things as he sees it and bringing things to light and desiring more transparency? I love that. That's awesome. That's wonderful. And those are the libertarian values that he stands by, and it's great. I think that's wonderful. But lastly, again, I wanted Justin to give me a quote of what his testimony is, and I have that quote for you. Justin says, the gospel is about a beautiful message and story, pure and without blemish. Faith in the gospel is what endures. Faith in what is not seen. If our testimonies are about the church, we are then as foolish men who build our houses upon sand. But if we have faith in him, then we will be wise. We will be the wise man. Faith in him and his message is what I have. Nothing more, nothing less. I'd like to add my testimony to that. My testimony. The lights are out. So I guess that's it. But my testimony is that I too know that God lives and that he loves us. And if we really strive to come close to him, that he will guide us to truth and love and happiness, and all things are good come from God. And I leave that in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.